All right, we're going to do lab number 2 here. So from your Learn Lab environment, go ahead and click lab number 2. This is scanning, identifying network nodes. So we're going to go ahead and launch lab, open that lab in a new window. Now it takes a little bit of time to build the lab environment. And as we're doing that, you want to take a look at each of these lab activities. With this assisted lab number 2, we're going to be doing using a vulnerability or a network scanner. We're going to be using some tools to identify these nodes, identify these different appliances that are on our device or on our network. And we're going to go through some basic tools. As you ramp up through these labs, they're going to get a little more difficult. They're going to go through different topics, and they're going to follow the lessons that you have here in the Learn Lab environment also. Let's go ahead and check our lab. We have about 2 minutes left on that. We'll, if you have any questions about the lab, feel free to jump in. Now, we also have, remember, we have our Discord server, and there's lots of great resources there. We have our community in our Discord server. And if you need a link to that, or you should have a link through your class, I'm going to go ahead and post a link here to the Discord server, or you can email info@cyberkrafttraining.com, and I'll send you a link to that Discord server also. We still got 1 more minute. The lab environment, they build pretty quickly. And if you're interested in building your own lab, we have our own lab environment that we can teach you how to build. This is one of our courses with Cyberkraft, how to build your own cybersecurity lab. So make sure you go through this course if you're interested in building a lab environment for yourself. It's going to teach you how to build this own lab environment with all of these virtual machines that you see in the CompTIA Learn Lab environment connected together. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that when you have a chance. Okay, looks like our lab environment's finished. So let's go ahead and take a look. It's going to go ahead and boot up Kali Linux. Now we're going to log into Kali Linux. Now to get the password for Kali Linux, you go over to the resource tab and be root, and the password would be the normal password you'd see within this lab environment, $$$W0RD. So we'll go ahead and log in. And here we have, in this environment, we have a DC1, MS1, LX1, PT1, our Kali machine, and RT1, which is an appliance. Okay. So it's going to ask us to use some common tools. We're going to sign in. We're going to open a terminal here. Let's go ahead and open a terminal. And from terminal, we're going to do ifconfig. Ifconfig is the Linux equivalent of ipconfig. Okay. And it's going to give us this information for our Ethernet connections. So we have Ethernet 1, Ethernet 2, and LO. Okay. We can also run an alternative command, IPA. If you like colors, IPA is for you. In newer versions of Kali, you'll have IPA show up with colors. This is an older version of Kali, I can tell, because IPA is showing in text, just black and white. But IPA just organizes the same information a little different. So IPA or ifconfig, very useful tools. And it's going to ask us what the IP address is for the EF or the F0 or Ethernet 0 adapter. This is one of our adapters here. So from here, we're going to look for the IP address, okay, and we're going to find the IP address, the IPv4 address, which is right there, 10.1.0.192. Go ahead and score that. Now this is going to check. This one is just a stored response, so we need to match up that IP address. Okay. Now we're going to identify the default gateway. So we do IP route and show. And then we have, there's our default gateway. So we have to have, what's the default address of the router? 10.1.0.254. And if you ever get stuck, you can hit this caret, and this caret's going to give you a screenshot of what it should look like when it's correct. We also have the ARP command. ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol. So we click ARP-A. And here we're checking our ARP table, or the ARP cache. And we're going to see an IP address for dc1.corp.515support.com. Okay. Now that's going to be, we're part of that domain, and that's going to be the fictitious domain, fictitious company that drives a lot of these scenarios. So we're going to go ahead and put that in 10.1.0.1. You'll find that information right there. Now we also have an IP neighbor command. And we run that command, shows similar information. Now we're going to use a tool on Kali called NetDiscover. And the syntax for NetDiscover is pretty simple. You type NetDiscover, NetDiscover-I, F0 for our Ethernet adapter 0, -R, and then we're going to scan an IP address here. I'm also going to put a slash and then 24. Now that /24 means I'm scanning port 24. So we'll go ahead and it's going to do that scan. Now if you want to find these tools, you can also look through the menu bar here, and you can find these through these menus here. So if you're looking for DNS analysis, network port scanners, you have Nmap. We have all sorts of tools here as well. Here's route analysis. This is the network discover. So if I were to click this, it's going to open up a new command or a new terminal with NetDiscover running. Now, it says the usage here, and this is a good way if you want to learn the syntax of these tools. We have NetDiscover-I stands for the device, -R is the range, -L is file, and we have some more qualifying information here. So if you want to learn about what these different commands do, I definitely recommend you look through it there. So the scanning is finished. It's not quite finished. It's going to keep going. It takes a little time. And here it's going to be capturing 5 hosts. So it should be finished now. Hit 5. Now, if we want to quit out of this scan, we could just hit Q. You can also just close out the terminal. We're going to hit Q, and we'll get back to our normal terminal command. You can also organize this by opening new terminal windows or new terminal instances if you like. It's up to you. Remember, I do invite you to play around with this lab environment and try different things. So if you want to do a different set of commands, definitely do so. Now, instead of typing in the whole spiel that we typed in before, we could just press the up button, and we'll see up and down. We'll cycle through the different commands, the up and down arrow keys, the different commands that we have used before. So we can go to NetDiscover, and we could find the command that we did. So say we want to look for a different port there. So we can just type in 80 here, okay? And then we can run a new NetDiscover command. Oh no, actually, for this we want to type in the range of either 16 or 24. So let's go ahead and limit our range here to 16. So yeah, that's a little different there. Remember, refer back to this syntax list if you want to learn more about what each of these mean. And these will tell you what all of these. So the range here, the -R that we typed in, we're going to scan a certain range, and it's going to be 24, 16, or 8. So we're going to go ahead and let that NetDiscover run. And again, it found those 5 captured ARP packets from different vendors. So let's keep going with our thing, with our exercise, and we should have our other command there. And if we want to quit out of that, we can hit Q. And I'm just going to bring back the one we had before. Now it's going to ask us to go to DC1. Remember, you can use these blue links to click through the different virtual machines. So we're going to go to DC1. We're going to send a Control-Alt-Delete command there. And we could type in our password with that green password check right there. So this is going to bring up Server Manager. We're going to bring up Command Prompt. I just go to the search bar, type in COM, and then I can right-click that, run it as administrator. You always want to run these as administrator if you're doing Command Prompt or PowerShell. And I'm just going to write ipconfig in here to check out the ipconfig information for this information. And I'm going to find my local IP address. It's asking for an IPv4 address, so that's going to be right there, 10.1.0.1. Now we're gonna send a ping out. We're gonna send a series of packets out to this IP address, 10.1.0.192. And it's gonna run for about 45 seconds. Now the path ping command is basically going to send a ping, a series of packets to a destination, and then record its journey through the internet. So in this instance, it's going to record how it goes to these different machines that we have. So it should be done any second now, and once we have that, we can answer question 19 here. Okay. Okay. This is telling us 0%, which is not being accepted. Oh, no. We have to write in 0%. You have to write the percent sign here. I always almost forget this one. You have to write the percent for number 19. So you can't just write 0. Even though it tells us right here that none of the packets were lost. Okay. Packets lost 0, packets sent 100, so 0% lost rate. You have to write the percent symbol here or it's not going to accept this answer. Make sure to do that. Okay, so now we go back to our Kali machine. We're going to use Nmap. Nmap is a very excellent network discovery tool. You can use Nmap for lots of different things. So definitely get familiar with Nmap. And you're going to be asked Nmap specific commands on the test. So we're going to go ahead and hit Nmap localhost. And we're going to see which ports are open on the virtual machine here. So we're going to look. Make sure you spell it correctly. So I said wall host instead of localhost. So you definitely want to make sure that you spell that. Now you can, when you have these commands in the instructions, I definitely recommend trying to type out these commands. Even in the Windows environment, type out the commands yourself rather than relying on the enter the text green links. It's going to help you learn these commands a lot better. So if you get some misspellings, that's fine. I often go through these. I go through these labs all the time, and I still misspell things. It's perfectly normal. Okay. Here we see our port open 22. Now, if who can tell me what port 22 is? Port 22 is SSH. Okay. Secure shell. Now we're going to do a very basic network scan. We're going to be Nmap. We're not going to have any qualifiers, 10.1.0.0 with the range of 24. It's going to start Nmap. Here we go, our scan completed. It's going to show different ports that are open here. Let me expand this window so we can see this a little better. And these are all the different devices that we have here. So these are the IP addresses for these different devices. Okay. So what services are running on this virtual machine, which is the router? Okay, so we can look at this virtual machine. Remember, what's the IP address for this virtual machine? Okay, great. Let's go up and see what we have here. Now here we have our different ports, our services here. Okay. Okay, now it's going to ask us to do a more specific command to look at just this machine. So let me clean up some of these terminal windows here, make this a little better to understand, a little easier to understand. So we're just going to open a new terminal. I'm going to run this focus scan. Now we're going to scan this machine here. And we have right here SSH and our web services, or our DNS services. SSH and domain. So 53, that's DNS. 22 is SSH. That's where we get the answers for number 6. Now we could also run a more aggressive scan with nmap-a for the same host. That's going to give us more information. It's going to give us information about things like the operating system, not just the services. So here we go, running Windows Linux 3.x or 4.x. So it's going to give you an idea what the operating system is just based on the type of traffic that's coming out of the machine. Now remember, if you want to skip ahead or you want to select things farther down the list, you can check that. It's going to select everything before that also. Okay. Now we're going to do a port scan for specific ports on this machine. So we do nmap-port, or P for port. We're going to select ports 20 to 200. 10.1.0.0, so we're not doing this machine, we're doing 10.1.0.0. If we refer back to our other scan, we can find out what machine 10.1.0.0 is. Which actually would be this machine. Okay. All right, so let's see. I know we're just looking through, we're doing a range here of 10.1.0.0 to 24. And then we can find these different open ports here, and we're looking at these different hosts and the ports that they have. So let's look at managed server 1. Scan report for MS1. Different ports we have are 25, 80, 135, 139, 143. Okay. 143 IMAP, 139 NetBIOS, 135 MSRPC, 80 HTTP, 25 SMTP. So is port 80 open? Yes. So we can select yes. And then we could find the 20 most common ports. nmap /top -ports 20 10.1.0.0/24 for that range. Now it's going to give us that Here we go. The 20 most commonly open ports are going to be listed here, or the 20 most common ports. 22 being open for a lot of these. Let's see. Actually, these are the 20 most commonly used ports, and it's going to give you an idea or a status report for each of these devices. Now, some of these are used for virtualization, so just ignore those. And we could also do some other nmap commands. 10.1.0.0/24. Make sure you're selected back into the window, which I wasn't right there. Okay. Run this command here. Now, if you're looking for an nmap cheat sheet, I definitely recommend picking one up. Those nmap cheat sheets are going to help you not only learn nmap, but they're also very helpful as a reference as you go through as you're using nmap in your day-to-day job. Unless you work with nmap very often, you don't necessarily need to memorize a lot of these commands. For the test, you will. In your day-to-day job, I highly recommend having some sort of reference sheet to learn some of these major ones. You'll probably have a few, maybe, 5 to 10 commands that you'll use on a regular basis. Otherwise, you don't need to memorize all of these by heart. Just have a cheat sheet. Look up the answer if you don't know the answer. It's a great, if you don't know something, ask somebody who does, or look it up online. That's how a lot of cybersecurity professionals operate, because you're never going to know the answer to everything. Okay, so we're going to be asked, let's see, which server is configured as the email server. So looking through here, we're going to look for some indications of which ones are the email server. Okay. So based on this, if you think you know the answer, go ahead. So one of these is going to be the mail server. And which one do you think it is? Of course, it's going to be the managed server, MS1. Okay. And as you go through this lab environment, you're going to learn how this lab, or how this simulated network environment is structured to simulate a corporation. And basically, you're going to be working within the confines of this corporate network, essentially. So all the penetration testing, all the configurations are going to be done in the confines of this network. Okay, so now it's going to ask, we're going to be using some different tools. We're going to be using CURL or curl, and we're also going to be using Firefox. We're going to do what's known as banner grabbing. Now we're going to be doing this through different browsers. So we're going to go ahead and open another terminal, and we're going to type in the curl command -s -I 10.1.0.1, and it's going to give us some information here about the server and some information. So what web server service and version is used on the VM. We have the server, Microsoft IIS version 10, which is right there. Okay, and then we can go, we can enter Firefox, or we can just type Firefox in a terminal. So if we want to do it that way, Firefox HTTP 10.1.0.1. It's going to open up a Firefox command. You can also just go to Firefox and type that in if you like. And then you can, I mean, we're just connecting to this IP address. So we're seeing that it's using Internet Information Services. Pretty clear. Okay. Now we can also look for DNS name sys. So we can look for DNS information using the dig command. So we can type in dig -x (10.1.0.254). And we're going to see with dig that we're going to get information about the DNS server. Once the IP address of the DNS server that answers the query, we can see that information there, server 10.1.0.1. 53 is port 53 for DNS. It's going to give us a timestamp here as well. Okay, for number 3, we're going to type in dig -x, and we're going to type in the domain or the IP address 10.1.0.2, because it's asking us for the fully qualified domain name of 10.1.0.2. So don't be confused. The initial command was for this IP. We're doing a different IP here. Okay, so we're going to look for the full qualified domain name, which would be right here, ms1.corp.515support.com. ms1.corp.515support.com. Now, don't put the dot at the end. Well, I guess either way, you could put it in there, but the dot at the end really shouldn't be in there. Okay, and then we're going to run the last command, dig SOA corp.515support.com. And then this is going to give us a fully qualified domain name of the DNS server, which is responsible for that, which is going to be this. That's the domain, the DNS server. Okay. Now we have different records in here. We have some information. We have A and quad A. A is going to be an IPv4 address. Quad A is going to be an IPv6 address. So that's what those two mean there. We also have AA and RA in here, which are at the top. These flags Q, R, AA, RD, and RA. Okay, so those are going to let us know that this is an authoritative record. So these flags indicate different information about the record that we retrieved using the dig command. Okay. Now what we've done in this lab is we have identified Kali. We have identified Windows servers. We haven't identified Kali Linux servers, but we have identified Windows servers, and we've done some basic scans of the network. Now, administrators could use this to verify different configurations. That'd probably be the best use. And attackers would probably use this to map the network and maybe check for older services, unpatched services, like checking for HTTP, unencrypted HTTP traffic. That'd be one. Now, this is also a correct answer to decide what servers to attack. If you're looking at it from strictly a penetration testing methodology standpoint, or like in the MITRE attack framework, this step would come later. So I don't think this would be a good, if this was a pen test plus or ethical hacker or a offensive security test, I wouldn't recommend that, but it is correct here. Okay, and then once you're done, go ahead and submit the lab and submit it for grading. But great job going through that lab environment. This was a tough one. It's one of the more difficult labs. It's the one right at the beginning, but great job and keep it up.